again. This is the 24th of March, 2019. A friend of mine is a retired 737 captain, and one of his good friends is a retired captain from FedEx, flying the heavies. I called my friend, the 737 retired captain, and I played that last video that I just posted, and he sent me a rather interesting article that was sent to him by the retired captain from FedEx. 737 MAX, the rest of the story. For those interested in a recent spate of accidents involving Boeing's newest 737 variant, the real story of what is going on behind the scenes is largely not being reported. It was interesting to note that President Trump alluded to the problem in a roundabout way, but unless you are a pilot, you probably missed the point. In essence, President Trump was saying that technology is a poor substitute for a qualified pilot in command. One of the most basic skills a pilot learns from day one is energy management of the airplane. If the plane is too slow, it will literally drop from the sky. Too fast, and the wing and airframe can come apart from disastrous consequences. In the history of commercial aviation in the United States and Western countries, the first crop of pilots to enter commercial service were the post-World War II pilots. Those guys were real deal, and not only hand flew almost all of their hours, but also in some of the most demanding conditions. The second wave were the airport kids who just fell in love with the idea of being a pilot and scrimped and saved to take lessons. Both categories of pilots were skilled in the art of aviation. With the explosion of the second and third world travel, there were not even close to the number of skilled pilots to fly thousands of new generation planes coming out of Airbus and Boeing. Uline Cathay Pacific, a Hong Kong airline that was almost exclusively piloted by British pilots, the new Asian airlines wanted Asian pilots to man the cockpits, often with disastrous results. Asiana Flight 214 crashed in San Francisco in 2014 because the pilot did not know how to hand fly the plane when the ground base approach, ILS, was out of service. Boeing, the FAA, and worldwide aviation agencies track not only accidents, but also incidents. Crap, that was going sideways, but didn't result in a crash. The number of unqualified pilots from Asia and Africa was plain to see in the number of errors being committed on a daily basis. To make a long story short, Airbus saw this eventuality decades ago and implemented automatic safety systems in anticipation of unqualified aircrews. Boeing resisted for a lot of very good reasons, but after the Asiatic crash, the Chinese government basically told Boeing to idiot-proof the 737s, as China would end up being the biggest purchaser of that model. Since Boeing had opted not to add automated control systems, which often override pilots' inputs, they were forced to apply a band-aid solution, which unfortunately was not done well. Only one sensor was driving some very complicated algorithms, which worked against the pilot's decision-making inputs. The fact that the Asian and African pilots were essentially unqualified is highly embarrassing to the respective governments, and Boeing kept it quiet. When ALPA, the pilots' union reps, found the system was added without informing the pilots, they went insane. However, what they don't know is that the MCAS system can be enabled or disabled per plane and can be done remotely on a real-time basis via uplink. The U.S. Airlines management, due to the superior training and piloting skills, opted not to activate MCAS, but the Asian African countries did. That is why most of the crappy airlines self-grounded, while all the major airlines are still flying without a problem. Well, that's really not true. They're all grounded. But you see, they shouldn't have been. Because according to this article, all of the American airlines, the 737s, they don't have MCAS operational. It's a very PC issue. PC is pilot in command. But basically it comes down to 30 to 40% of the global pilot population are really not qualified to be pilots, but more just data input managers. Folks, anybody that flies on any of those aircraft that are piloted by either Africans or Asians, you're putting your life in your own hands. What doesn't make any sense, if this is true, why have they grounded all their planes here in the United States? They're perfectly fine. This information needs to be made public. I can't do it alone. I need you to repost this in all of your social media outlets. You need to send this to President Trump. He needs to ask his buddy, Dennis Mulberger, if this is true. Why haven't we been made aware of it, and why have they grounded all the planes in America? Absolutely nuts. I told you. They've taken automation to a degree that's out of this world because it was demanded by the foreign countries that have unskilled pilots. Anyone that gets in a plane by one of those captains, you're a cuckoo. Thanks for listening. Special thanks goes up to my retired 737 captain for sending this to me. You need to know this, folks. Thanks for listening.